How you doing, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Gary here, and I'm in the place where all the solar and battery projects happen. Now, some of you have been asking me what I have planned for the future, project-wise, for the solar and for the batteries. I've answered some of those questions on YouTube and in some of the forums that I'm a member of. Now, I'm quite happy to be able to answer questions and to be able to, give people my advice or opinion on certain projects that they're undertaking themselves. It's great to see people buying and building their own batteries in particular. I love seeing people coming back to me and saying, yeah, I've gone ahead and I've pulled the trigger and I've ordered myself a Seplos and built it and everything's working great. I love seeing that kind of stuff. And likewise, thank you very much for the people who have given me information which has allowed me to build this project. So I'm basically just passing on the knowledge that's been given to me by members before me. So I suppose I should give a little bit of context here as to how I've gotten here before I explain on what I'm going to do going forward. So let's get to it. The main reason for going with solar in the first instance, as I'm sure it is with the vast majority of people, was simply cost. We use quite a bit of electricity here, so as a result of that, the bills were quite high. So I decided solar was the way to go. What's high, you might ask? Well, if we look at the average family home in Ireland, 3 to 4 bedroom, the average use is just over 4,000 units per year, or 4,000 kilowatt hours per year. My home, we were spending, I think, 15,000 units, so 15,000 kilowatt hours. So the bills were quite a bit higher. I was receiving bills on a 2-monthly basis that were sometimes higher than 800 euros. They were typically between 600 and 800 euros. Very, very rarely would they be any less than that. And usually if they were, it was because a credit was received on the bill from a government energy credit or something like that. But typically we were spending about 100 euro per week on electricity, so quite high. Now, of course, that's relative. Energy in other regions, in other countries, is far more expensive than that, and bills are far higher than that. But if we look at it relatively speaking, usually a bi-monthly energy bill in Ireland is about 200 euros, not 800 euros, so relatively far more expensive. Of course, there are reasons why the energy usage is actually so high. In the first instance, we do have a large family here. I haven't mentioned before, but myself and my wife, we have 8 children, all the way from 3 weeks of age to 22 years of age. So we've got a nice spread, but they use energy, and a lot of it, especially if they're taking showers. A lot of energy gets used. So in the house, obviously we have computer consoles, we have PCs, electric oven, electric shower, and just stuff basically being turned on. We try to mitigate that as much as possible. All of our bulbs are LED. I get stuff to switch off automatically as well with smart Wi-Fi plugs and all that kind of stuff, but we still use a lot of energy. Not to mention the fact that we also run 2 EVs for the household as well, and quite likely we will soon have 3 EVs and maybe even 4 EVs over the next 2 to 3 years. So a lot of energy being used there. I suppose, just to give you some context, I was just looking at the Solis inverter readings there over the last 6 months, so September through to February, and our usage was actually quite consistent. We're averaging around 1,500 units per month, so we're actually on track to use about 18,000 kilowatt hours if we stick with that average, which of course we're quite likely to. Nothing is really going to change. If anything, it's going to get a little bit more than that. February was a little bit less. I was looking at February and we used only 1,300 units compared to the usually 1,500 to 1,600 units. And the reason for that is I was working away. I was in Belgium and France for the whole month of February, and I wasn't using the EV to commute to and from work. So there was a little bit less energy usage as a result of that. I'd say about 250 units less as a result of that. Now that you have some understanding of why we use so much energy and why solar was seen to be a good idea, I'll explain the system that I have. So We have a 5.22 kilowatt peak system on the house. It was installed by a professional solar company. So on the roof, we have 8 panels facing south. The panels that I have are 435 watt Jinko Neo black panels. So 8 of those facing directly south, and then 4 of those with optimizers on the north facing roof. The reason why the optimizers are there is because there's a chimney on the north side of the roof, and at times of the day and times of the year, a shadow is cast across some of the panels. So that's why we have that in place. That goes through a fireman switch, which is also just up on the roof, and that runs down to this Solus 5 kilowatt inverter. Now, I was looking at batteries as well. I was looking at the pre-made branded batteries. Specifically, I was actually looking at the Weco 5.3 kilowatt hour batteries, and I was looking at getting 2 of those, but the costs were absolutely astronomical. I was convinced to go with DIY batteries. I was looking at just ordering larger batteries in from China, but I seen the DIY stuff. I watched other YouTube channels, and I saw that, yeah, this is something I could probably do. Carried out a bit more research, and I decided to build 1 battery. So I had 16 kilowatt hours, and now I have 48 kilowatt hours. I have 3 of those batteries there, and I've got, with my buffers taken into account, I've got 43 kilowatt hours usable, give or take a few watt hours here and there. I actually only use about half of that, so I've got a nice big buffer built in. If there's a lot of use on one day, I'm not going to worry about the batteries running out. I've got plenty of energy there, and I don't think I'm going to need to upgrade this system. I probably will, but I don't really need to. What I do want to do is have the ability to charge the batteries faster. So that was either upgrade the inverter, and that means getting an NC7, or I'll talk about my next option shortly. Now, you have already seen the battery builds. I have an entire series dedicated to, building these batteries and getting them hoisted into place and all that kind of good stuff. If you haven't seen them, it's definitely worth a watch. Go back and take a look. And if you don't have anything like this, it'll certainly make you think twice about what you're considering going forward if you're getting solar and batteries, or if you already have batteries. Sell them, build your own batteries. You'll actually make a profit on selling the old batteries and building these things if you do it the right way. The way I have these batteries set up is that they will charge between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. on cheap night rate electricity. Well, I should probably call it morning rate, but whatever. So on average, I'm getting, the rate is, I think it's 9 cents. Now it's actually 8 cents, and then there's a fair usage limit, and then it goes to, I think, 10 or 11 cents. On average, it's 9 cents that I'm using, so I'll just stick with that. So I'm getting up to 20 units or 20 kilowatt hours of top up between 2 and 6 a.m. I'd like to get a little bit more, but I'll explain a little bit in the video on what I'm planning on doing with regards to that. The rest of the day, the batteries are basically going to be powering the home, and I'm going to be drawing very, very little from the grid. The only time I'm actually going to draw from the grid after the night rate is when there's a very high load. So for example, if I turn on the shower, somebody pops into the shower, that's going to draw up to 9 kilowatts. This inverter is limited to 5, so it's only going to take 5 from the batteries and send it into the house. The other 4 needs to come from the grid, and that doesn't count anything else that's been run in the house at the same time. The oven could be on, you could have 3 PCs or consoles on at the same time. So really the idea there is that I need to drop the high loads from the house. Leading on to that, we have I think it's a 140 litre cylinder, 130, 140, just a dumb cylinder, and we have a 4-bar whole house pump. So technically, if there is hot water, so if we turn on the gas heating, or we just turn on the immersion switch, we'll get hot water and we can use that. So once we kind of turn on the shower, it's kind of a mixing hot and cold. It's not thermostatic, it's just a bath shower connection. We can use it, and it's actually much nicer to use because it's much more powerful than the Triton T90. So I tend to, whenever I can, use that shower. Once I have the temperature set, all good. It takes 30 seconds and then it's all good. Right. Our heating is by gas. We don't have any electric heaters in the household, and I'm kind of glad that we don't, because we draw enough as it is. So when we turn on the gas boiler, that heats the home, heats all the radiators, and it also heats the water in the hot water cylinder. The one other source of heating that we do have, if we're not including when the oven is on and it's heating the home, we do have a small stove in the living room. I think it's a 5 kilowatt stove. It's a multi-fuel, and that's more there, not really to heat the home. It's a nice luxury to have. I always loved having particularly an open fire, but you know, the stove is that much safer and it's a little bit of a luxury. Not very clean, I know, but I like lighting that in the winter. It's just lovely to sit around. So that's pretty much the setup that I have at the moment in the house. Alright guys, you now have some context and a much better understanding of where I am now and why I'm going to carry out the plans that I'm going to lay out before you. The biggest upgrade that I'm going to be carrying out will be more solar panels. I kind of regret not getting an additional 4 panels on the front of the house, but I'm just going to leave that system alone, separate as it is. I don't want to interfere with it. It's under warranty. I'm just going to leave it as it is. The panels that I am going to install are, if you look here, this is just some image captured from my new toy. This here is my kitchen extension. Those windows, just for a sense of scale, they are 1 by 2 meters, and the width of that roof there is 5 meters across. So that's going to allow me to fit 4 additional panels there, and I'm going to stick with the same panels more than likely. I don't really see any reason to change unless I get a fantastic deal on a similar size panel with a similar wattage. 4 panels there. That's my shed. Now I'm going to be able to fit 4 panels there. There will be a 50mm overhang on both sides, so the east and west side. So I'm going to need to secure those. And with those 8 additional panels, of course, another inverter is needed. Now, I was very lucky to find a used inverter on a local website. I've managed to pick myself up for €100, a 1-year-old 3.6 kilowatt Solus string inverter. Really happy with that. It's going to be going right here, and it's going to be a completely separate system. I was considering having them communicate with each other, but I've decided in the end I'm actually just going to have a completely separate system. I also picked up a data logger for €3, which I hope works. If it doesn't, no big deal, I'll just pick up another one. It actually cost me more money going through tolls to pick up the data logger, but I have the data logger, so at least I'll have some details there. I'll be able to see what's being generated from the 8 additional panels. Now, the most important part of the project, or the upgrades that I have planned, is to get more juice into these batteries. Right now I'm limited by the 5 kilowatts of this inverter, and I don't want to, well, I do want to get a larger inverter. That'd be a lot simpler, but I don't want to go through the expense and the hassle of all of that. I need to get an NC7, which is basically an upgraded permission from the ESB, or the DNO, as you probably have it in the UK. We have the ESB, which is our DNO. The controllers of the grid, they decide whether or not you are allowed to export more than 5 kilowatts, and you have to pay the €1,000 just to apply for it, and you might not get it. If you don't get it, you lose your €1,000. If you do get it, you still have the expense of getting the upgraded inverter and all that kind of certification. So I'm going to leave this as it is, and I've gone for an Emerson 3 kilowatt, we call them charge inverters. It's basically a DC charger. So that's going to be installed, well, below this inverter here, and it's going to connect to the bus bar that's below the batteries. That charge inverter is going to be controlled with a Sonoff smart Wi-Fi switch. But what I'll do is I will have this turn on between 2 AM and 6 AM, and that will basically boost the charging of those batteries. I will limit it to 2 kilowatts. I don't want to take the full 3 kilowatts. I think that's probably a bit too much of a load to be drawing at any one time, just in case anything else gets turned on. So I'm going to limit it to the 2 kilowatts. Plus I'll have my actual charger outside restricted. So if my EV charger detects a load higher than I want, the EV charger will then dial down and will give the EVs a little bit less power or a little bit less charge. I do have a couple of smaller jobs that I'll be getting carried out. I picked myself up 30 meters of 6 square armored cable. I'm going to be running a fresh cable out to my shed, which is going to be used as an office or study area, and I'm going to install a brand new consumer unit out there. That will take up 15 meters of the run. The other 15 meters is going to go down here, and that's going to connect to my outdoor socket, which will be used to charge up one of the EVs at a much slower rate. So that'll be getting charged up at like 10 amps, rather than 16 plus amps. The reason why I want to run a fresh line out there is because in the future I will have a second proper EV charger, so it's just future proofing, as well as separating the line from where it is. Right now the outdoor socket shares with the gates and my Ring doorbell, which isn't exactly ideal. It's actually tripping at the moment, so I think I need to tighten up a couple of those cables, something I can do myself. Before anybody asks about all of these works being carried out, yes, I am going to do it myself. I'm going to be installing all of the hardware. I'm going to be doing all of the cable runs. I'm going to install the new consumer unit in the shed. I'm going to be doing all the stuff that I'm legally allowed to do. I won't be able to touch the consumer unit in the house though. So basically the final terminations, that's when an electrician is going to come in, check that my work has been done up to scratch, and also make the connections in the consumer unit. I've basically gone, or will have gone, and done all the hard work. I have all the MCBs, the ORCBOs, all that kind of stuff. In fact, I'm getting a couple of the circuits upgraded because the electrician that installed some of the stuff there, let's just say a couple of things need to be changed and separated. So I have the MCBs for that, so you can kind of split a couple of the lines and basically spread the load a little bit more, have their own individual circuits. That's pretty much everything, guys. The only thing I really need to order now is an AC and DC isolator switch for the new inverter, and then I'm ready to go. Of all the cables, of all the parts, all the bits and pieces, and I'm kind of chomping at the bit to get started on it now. So that's everything I have for now. I'll create videos separately on each project that I'm doing here, and as I said, I'll probably be starting on the Chargeverter stuff here, so keep an eye out for that. If you like the sound of what I'm doing here, if you have any questions, please put them in the comments, but leave a like, subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.